חוסך לעצמי כאב לב.
Reached.
כן, בבקשה.
Presiding Judge, yes, please, continue. These are... Presiding Judge asks that this material, this document, be shown to him. This apparently includes everything. What you call the reminiscences. Mr. Less, these are just the notes which he made. 24 sets of reminiscences. Mr. Landau, what about the reminiscences? Mr. Hausner, we shall submit these shortly. The judge, this was not very clear to me. Has this been marked according to these annotations here? I see here a serial number. Mr. Hausner, this carries a serial number 1491. The judge says that he wishes to see the individual serial numbers. He asks Mr. Hausner, have you any additional annotations besides the serial number 1491?
יש פה 24
Wait.
מסמכים.
I shall any present attempt.
כתב 46.
T46, the newspaper Stern.
כן.
Did you interrogate the accused in connection with the articles which appeared about his person in a Life magazine? Answer. I brought to the accused the translation in German from the Life magazine. Could you kindly submit the original and the translation into German of the article in question which you brought to the accused, says the prosecutor.
And this was the material which helped guide you. And this is as you saw the plan and the establishment of those offices. Will you please hand the draft to court? I submit them only in evidence only for guidance, Your Honor. But we shall need those plans as the evidence proceeds. And it is good that the plan be before the eyes of the court. The court, is this the organization of the accused's office?
This was the Department of Jewish Affairs and their outposts, as we saw it according to the documents.
Will you please explain, Mr. Less?
For example, in RSHA, for example, the head of the security police and the SD the office number 4, and then later on the department 4B4, which up to 1944 then he later on got another name, namely of the department 4A4. And the aforesaid department and its branches were dealing in the period of 1941, 1942 up to the end with various subjects as they are marked here. I'm going to read them in German. Judenangelegenheiten, Beruhigungsangelegenheiten, Staats- und Feindvermögen, Aberkennung der deutschen Reichsangehörigkeit, and from 1944, I do not know the exact date, Politisierung der Kirchen, secularization of churches. And Eichmann was heading the aforesaid department. The instructions were given from there through BDS, that will say commander of the security police in France and Belgium.
Is that all, Mr. Hausner? Yes, this is all. Dr. Servatius, do you have any questions to put to this witness? No, answers.
Herr Zeuge, haben neben der Bandaufnahme Besprechungen über das Vernehmungsthema stattgefunden zur Vorbereitung der dann folgenden Aussage?
I have a number of questions. Witness, in addition to the recording on the tape, were there conversations about the interrogation?
I do not understand the question properly. There were various statements made.
The court, I believe the question is clear. Before the taped material in T37, were there any preliminary conversations?
Mr. Less, there was the warning, the caution which was given by Mr. Hofstetter.
The court, before the caution, this is the way I understood the question.
Not known to me. I first saw the accused on the 29th of May, 1960.
Ich habe mich nicht klar genug ausgedrückt. Ich meine, ob der Angeklagte vorbereitet worden ist, ob ihm Wünsche nahegelegt worden sind, Bestimmtes auszusagen oder nicht auszusagen, ob man einen höflichen oder unhöflichen Druck auf ihn ausgeübt hat, in einer bestimmten Richtung auszusagen und dass man dann erst zu der Bandaufnahme überging.
I think I did not express myself clearly. What I mean is, was the accused prepared? Were the questions put to him? Was there any duress, or was the approach civil, and only then the recording began? The court remarks that the Hebrew translation was not exact. Was he told that, was he asked to give witness regarding certain matters and not to witness other matters?
Before I commenced the recordings, I explained to the accused that I wanted to use the tape recorder, and I told him that to the extent that what he would tell us would be of interest, he should refer to his own activities during the German Reich from 1933 until May 1945, the end of the war, and nothing else.
The court, Dr. Servatius, you mean you refer to what happened before the recording began or during the recording itself?
Zunächst habe ich gefragt vor der Aufnahme, es bezieht sich aber natürlich auch auf den Lauf der Aufnahme. Aber soweit ich sehe, hat der Zeuge ja schon erklärt, dass das nicht der Fall ist, soweit ich ihn verstanden habe. Er hat nur gesagt, dass der Zeuge gewarnt worden ist, dass diese Aussagen gegen ihn verwandt werden können und dass nur bestimmte Dinge hier interessieren, nämlich die sich auf die Anklagepunkte beziehen.
I referred first to the time before the recording, but of course, naturally, I mean also after recording began. But I understood from the words said by the witness, but this was not the case, that such a question was not put to the accused. He was only warned, cautioned, that whatever he says may be held against him, and that he was requested to say what is interesting to this case. The court, I believe that if there was anything before the recording, the witness does not know.
Yes, Your Honor, this is what I said before, and I now repeat this. Before the recording, if this is the matter to which Dr. Servatius is referring, before he expressed his readiness to make his statement, I said that he should refer only to his own, the role which he himself played during the period of the German Reich.
The court, the president of...
Maybe the intention was that since I said to him that insofar as he would find it appropriate to give supplementary information, he should do so.
Ist es zutreffend, dass Ihnen gesagt hat, ich habe mir die Sache nachts noch eingehend überlegt und möchte Folgendes ergänzen?
Is it correct that the accused told you, I thought over the things and I wish to add to what has been said last night?
He made comments of this kind, certainly.
Sagte wollte ergänzen, weil sich bei der Vernehmung, bei dem plötzlichen Vorhalt nicht habe sofort erinnern können.
Did the accused say that he wants to supplement the interrogatory because when the question was put suddenly he did not remember all the details?
No, I don't recall this, that he said anything of this kind.
Ich habe eine weitere Frage. Sie haben erklärt, dass Sie dem Angeklagten die Zeitschrift Live vorgehalten haben. In der Zeitschrift Live stehen ja die Berichte über seinen Besuch in Minsk, wo er diese Erschießungen gesehen hat, wie er später diese Gaswagen gesehen hat. Hatte er vorher darüber schon ausgesagt, bevor Sie ihm diese Zeitung vorhielten?
One more question. You said here that you showed him articles out of the Life magazine. And there were reports there how he visited Minsk and watched the shootings and their putting into the gas trucks, etc. On those subjects, did he give testimony before you showed him this article?
Yes.
Bei welcher Gelegenheit ist dies gewesen? War das schon lange vor diesem Artikel?
What opportunity? Was it long before the article was shown to the accused?
This was approximately in June. And the Life magazine was shown to him in December.
Waren Ihnen selbst diese Vorgänge schon bekannt geworden?
Did you yourself already know these proceedings?
From the mouth of the accused.
Aber vorher nicht von dritter Seite. Sie hörten also diese Vorgänge erst von dem Angeklagten zum ersten Mal freiwillig.
Not before. You did not hear about it from a third party. You heard about these proceedings only from the mouth of the accused for the first time.
Yes.
Ich habe keine weiteren Fragen mehr.
No more questions. The prosecution now rises. Mr. Less, do you know if there was any undue influence used regarding the accused to obtain this declaration and the recording?
No duress was applied.
Prosecution, do you know why the confrontation between Ben O'Kern and the accused has taken place?
For the sake of identifying.
Thank you. That is all. No more questions. Taking the stand in the witness box. President of court, please cover your head. The witness speaks Hebrew. And put your right hand on the Bible. I swear by God that my testimony in this case will be the truth, all the truth, and nothing but the truth. Your full name? Shalom Baron and now Salo Baron. Shalom.
Salo Wittmeyer.
Salo Wittmeyer.
Wittmeyer.
N-A-Y-E-R. Wittmeyer. Baron. The prosecution. You are a professor of Jewish history at the University of Columbia. Since when?
Yes, since 1930.
Prosecution. When this
chair. Since the chair was founded, yes.
The court permits the witness to sit down if he is tired. Prosecution. You were born in Tarnów.
Tarnów in Galicia, which was then part of Austria.
Prosecution. Studied in Vienna.
Yes, I studied in Vienna, and I got my doctorate in philosophy in 1917, my doctorate in law in 1923, and doctorate in political science in 1923. I also was ordained as a rabbi by the rabbinical seminar there.
Prosecution. Amongst your publications, the history of the communities.
I have written a book on the Jewish history until the period of the American Revolution, which appeared in 3 volumes.
Prosecution. Other publications?
On the communities of Jewish communities throughout the generations. My chief work, perhaps, was the religious and social history of the Jewish people. The second edition has appeared in 8 volumes at Columbia University, published in from 1952 to 1960. It has been published into France in 4 volumes. 3 volumes have appeared in Hebrew, and an Italian edition is shortly to appear.
Do you also do any research work of the history of the Jewish people?
I published, for example, a book in English, Modern Nationalism and Religion, which were lectures which I gave at Colgate, Rochester Divinity School.
You were a visiting professor at some universities, a number of them?
Yes, in various places.
The court asks,
Colgate Rochester Divinity School. This is a Baptist religious college.
You were a visiting professor?
At the Hebrew University in Jerusalem, I lectured 3 years ago for half a year.
At other universities?
Also in other universities in the United States and in South Africa and so on.
Now, Professor Baron, can you tell the court, please, in a general sketch, and cut on the situation of the Jewish nation before the catastrophe because of Nazism?
Your Honors, before I attempt to reply to this question, may I give a double apology. First, for my poor Hebrew, in which I am not very fluent, and occasionally there may be some words lacking. Would the court please allow me then to use English or some other language? This leads me to the second apology. I appear here not as an eyewitness, nor as a jurist, but as a historian. I know that a historian who deals with contemporary affairs has to deal with the following problems. Generally, a historian likes to deal with matters in perspective, which he cannot secure until some years have passed. Secondly, he generally has not got documents on contemporary history, which are not available usually for the last 50 years. It seems to me that in regard to the period before World War II, there is a certain difference. This is so far from the mind of the present generation, has even been forgotten by those who lived through it, that it seems to me that there is a certain historical perspective available to us, which is generally not present. As far as documentation is concerned, we are fortunate in that many of the German archives and registries were conquered by the Allies and have been published already. And also that many of those who are present in this hall have also written documents and diaries and so on, so that
but also the same Jews in Europe were actually the very origin of the communities of Jews outside Europe, because they took their origin, actually. Jews of America, for instance, were almost founded, so to say, by the European Jewry, let me say about 50 years before the Holocaust. In the meantime, the community expanded in America, which reached in the 30s about 5 million. And this is actually the very result of the Eastern communities. This holds good for South America and also of the countries within the framework of the British Commonwealth of Nations, and also so far as Israel is concerned, we can say that the economic lease of life was given to it by the European community, because this is actually the cradle of the other communities. It is therefore very difficult to make a division between the European community and the other communities, because they were inextricably linked with one another.
At the end of World War I, it appeared that the Jews in general were going to enjoy full rights throughout the world, and that they would achieve full emancipation. And it was just in this period that the Nazi movement grew, immediately after the end of World War I. And this showed the world for the first time that a steady development over a period of 200 years could still be overturned overnight. It had been generally thought that only underdeveloped countries nations which were not renowned for their cultural status were those which refused to grant the Jews equal rights. And it was thought that it was only a matter of a few decades when the world at large would recognize the justice of this claim for equal rights on the part of the Jews. And then came the Nazis and showed that in a highly developed and cultured country, which was amongst the leaders of the cultural developments in the world in the period before the First World War, that it was possible to turn the clock backwards and to deprive the Jews of the rights which they had gained as a result of a natural historical development. Church. This was one of the famous incidents of those days. And right through the Middle Ages until modern times, in one country after another, there was state protection for the Jewish synagogue. The Kristall night in 1938, when 101 German Jewish synagogues were destroyed, was certainly something new. There, instead of defending the Jewish synagogues, it was the government of the day itself which brought about their destruction. This certainly was an innovation, because nothing like this had occurred in the darkest days of the Middle Ages, or right into up to modern times. The same applies to Jewish cemeteries. In every generation there have been sadists of various kinds who have attempted to commit acts against Jews, even against deceased Jews in cemeteries. But in one generation after another, there have been constitutions and laws which have prevented any desecration of Jewish cemeteries. There were many destructions of tombstones at various times, and here again Germany was in the forefront amongst those who committed pillage of Jewish cemeteries.
Has been described after the conquest of Nazi Germany.
In general, the impression which we all received in 1945 was an impression of complete destruction, a destruction far greater than that in which the Jewish communities ever were destroyed at any point in Jewish history. Even during the First Crusades and the Black Death, never was there such a comprehensive destruction of Jewish communities, or dispersed over so wide an area as was presented to our eyes in 1945. For example, in Poland, the same country in which there were some 3 million Jews before the Second World War, very few were left. According to the numerical data in our hands, the total figure, According to the census carried out by the Central Jewish Committee in Poland in August 1945, 73,955 Jews were left, and of them 13,000 were Polish soldiers. And the others were people who had been deported from Germany and Austria. Thus, out of a total of 3 million Jews, only a small number were left, small remnant. The same was true of Germany, where between 15 and 20,000 Jews were left, and Czechoslovakia and other countries in Central Europe. The matter was even worse in that very few children were left. As far as the future of the people of Israel was concerned, so few children were left in Czechoslovakia, Bohemia, Moravia, and Silesia, whereas in 1930 there were over 117,000 Jews. In October 1945 there were only just over 14,000 Jews, and only just over 1,000 children under the age of 15. That is to say, a very small proportion. 8.5% approximately. This was a terrible state of affairs. One could see in advance that the Jews of Central Europe could not thus return to the glory of their position in the days before the Holocaust. The terrible part of it was that the destruction was most severe, particularly in those areas where the Jews were most creative, in Germany, in Poland, and in the neighboring lands. The lands in which the destruction was not quite so severe, and in which Jewish life was not quite as creative, were those in which the Jewish population had almost been completely wiped out. I will quote a personal experience. In Tarnów, where I was born, I visited the place in 1937 and again in 1958. In 1937, there was a flourishing community of 20,000 Jews with all the excellent institutions, synagogue, which had existed there for 600 years. In 1958, I found only 20 Jews there, and very few of them were natives of the place. This was typical for so many of the cities of Poland and the neighboring countries. According to the census which I mentioned before, Jews were found in only 224 places, whereas before the war there were Jewish communities in some 2,000 places. That is to say, the vast majority of Jewish communities completely disappeared from the scene. The destruction was terrible, as I mentioned before, such as has never been seen in the history of the Jewish people.
Prosecution without precedent in the history of the Jewish people.
Unprecedented in Jewish history. A third of Polish Jewry alone in the Middle Ages had been killed off, but there had never been anything to compare with the present Holocaust. In Spain, were killed and the best of their youth, and so they suffered even more than the general community. The destruction was quite decisive.
Prosecution, Professor, can you add and say something about your appreciation of the destruction of European Jewry and Jewry in the world?
Yes, the consequences of this destruction are felt right to this day. Without any doubt, they will be felt for decades to come, perhaps even for whole generations. According to our figures, there were something like 6.5 million Jews in 1939 in Europe. The interpreter corrects himself. There were 16.5 million Jews in the world at the onset of World War II, 1939, and at the end of the war, at the most, 12 million Jews. Even today, 12 years after the war, it is clear that the total Jewish population is at least a quarter less than it was before World War II.
If we compare two nations conquered during the war, like Germany and Japan, in Germany, when the war ceased, there were many towns destroyed, the population was hungry, and everything seemed dark and gloomy. And yet, now, 16 years later, Germany, Western Germany and Eastern Germany both have progressed and their population increased. I do not have the numbers for the last year or two, but they have increased and added a quarter of the population. Japan, which suffered Nagasaki and Hiroshima, now again has 90 million people. That is about a third more than in the year 1939, whilst the Jewish people now counts not more than 12 million, as I said. And one must bear in mind that had the Jews increased naturally, as they did in the 30s, 120,000 per year, on the average, then in 22 years from the year 1939 there would have been an increase of undoubtedly 2.5 million people more. Were it not that the Jews took part in the general increase of the population expansion, which I mentioned in the morning, then the average yearly increase would have reached 140,000, or maybe 150 or 160,000 per annum. And the Jewish people would have counted today about 20 million or more souls. Instead of 20 million, we have only 12 million people. Not only that, 292 includes a number of pages and the content is as follows. The 22nd of December 23, the appointment of Adolf Eichmann to SS Schallführer as from the 24th of December 1933. A document of the 23rd October 37. Appointing SS Hauptscharführer. The appointment as from August 38, I believe the 26th of August, to the rank of Unterscharführer. From the 2nd of February 39 as Obersturmführer. The court corrects that Untersturmführer must have been the rank he was awarded in the previous document. The 1st of August 40, the prosecution continues. Hauptsturmführer. And the following document is a recommendation for promotion. And of the 9th of November 41, Obersturmbannführer. There is also here the appointment in the Waffen-SS. Untersturmführer der Reserve der Waffen-SS. And this is dated the 13th of January 44. The informations to the departments in the SS. All this is included in document number 26, which I submit to court hereby. This is marked 55/5.
The following document, which was included in his personal file and which received from the Documentation Center in Berlin, refers to one of his subordinates, Dr. Jakubowicz. It was submitted to the accused on pages 2592 to 2595 and is signed by the accused, which he verifies that the subordinate worked in Galicia for a certain period. The following document, written in his handwriting, was submitted to him at pages 321 to 324 of his statement and includes his biography. In the statement, in the court statement, the number is 2. 19th of, I was born in Zollingen.
My father was head of the local tram, and I went to school there, and 4 years high school and 2 years of an institution for higher studies for electricity and masonry.
The office of the accused, where he appears as head of the office 4A4.
This is marked as 55/13.
I should like to draw the attention of the court to the pictures of the accused in the years 1934, 35, and 1938, which are here marked number 7, which were recalled in the testimony in the page 320, 321. And the picture which he signed in 1950, 1951. This is his picture, which is to be found in the file 122, Did he sign it? Yes, he signed on this picture, and he identified his signature.
Dr. Servatius asked.
I should like to ask the Attorney General to point to the origin of these pictures, of these photographs. These photographs were attached to the personal file. The photograph in question, its origin is a bit later. I can't possibly point to its origin, and I shall do it later, and I'll bring it to the court. The accused didn't deny that this was his photograph and his signature. This is included in the pages 1782, 1704 of the testimony. He said that he had signed the photograph in the years 1950 and 1951 while in Argentina, and he calls himself SS Obersturmführer AD. That means to say in pension state. This is how he saw himself at the year 1950-1951. And you do not know when he did it. He certainly did not deny that this is his picture and that this is his signature.
כן. סליחה, רגע. הגענו למספר 15.
We reach number 15. And together with the pictures, we'll have number 15. Dr. Servatius, please.
Auch nicht, dass es eine Unterschrift ist. Sagt, es scheint mir aber eine Fotomontage zu sein. Ich weiß nicht, wo dieses Bild herkommen soll. Er möchte das Original sehen.
The accused does not deny that he is the man figuring on the photograph, nor does he deny that this was his signature, but he believes that this is some sort of a photomontage, and therefore he would like to know the origin of the photograph. Could we see the photograph, asks the presiding judge.
Let's take parts.
Oh, no, I forgot.
This is what I was
I don't know, I thought you found
I'll
something.
take the court.
Good.
And you'll take the prosecution.
Good. And Servatius.
זאת אומרת, הוא חושב שהכתב היד הורכב על התמונה.
He believes that the handwriting was the montage onto the picture. Dr. Servatius asks to see the picture.
For example, the accused said himself in connection with the photograph the following thing. Here the prosecutor stopped.
The picture is in the hands of Dr. Servatius, and Dr. Servatius says this is not the original, this is a...
Dass hier durch Fotomontage eine Zusammensetzung gebracht worden ist.
I say that this is not the original photograph, this is a copy of an original photograph, that it is possible that this was really a photomontage. The picture is
with
being
the court's
returned.
permission, I should like to draw the court's attention to page 1678, 1779. Mr. Less shows him the picture and says, would you like to have a look at the photograph? Is it your photograph? Eichmann answers, yes, it is. When was the picture taken? Eichmann, this was taken in Argentina. In what year? This was, I believe, in Tucumán. In Tucumán, that means to say 1951, 1952. No, not 52. I believe it is 1950 or 1951, I believe. Less. And is this your signature, Adolf Eichmann, SS? Yes. Obersturmbannführer AD? Yes.
Darf ich noch darauf hinweisen?
Dr. Servatius rises.
את הנוסח הגרמני, טוב.
The same in translation, Mr. Less asks, would you like to look over the picture? Eichmann, yes, of course. Less, when was the picture taken? Eichmann, in Argentina, I believe. Less, in what year was it taken? Eichmann, it was about 1951. It is in Tucumán. I can recognize it by the suit I was wearing. It was 51 or 52. No, 51, it couldn't have possibly been the case. It was 50 or 51. And is this your signature? Is this your handwriting? Adolf Eichmann, oder Sturmbannführer, AD, in pension? Yes, answers Eichmann.
Ich darf vielleicht darauf hinweisen, dass der Angeklagte Bedenken hat, denn es sind ja seine Memoiren ebenfalls von einem gewissen Bekannten in einer verstümmelten Form veröffentlicht worden und er glaubt, dass möglicherweise hier diese Fotomontage gemacht worden ist, um hier diesen Memoiren etwas Nachdruck zu verleihen. Deswegen wäre es von Bedeutung zu wissen, wo das Original dieser Fotografie ist, wo er unterzeichnet hat.
May I point to the fact that the accused has suspicions that his memoirs published by a friend in a very distorted manner, and therefore the suspicion is justified that this picture was also meant to stress the memoirs, and would like to know the origin of these pictures.
I do not know this publication or this acquaintance. I'm not responsible for the acquaintances of the accused and their publication. So far as I'm concerned, to the best of my knowledge, before saying anything with regard to the source of this photograph, all right, I'll examine. In the meantime, I believe that there is no objection to the submission of this photograph, and the words of Dr. Servatius had been taken in minutes, and the Attorney General will still examine where the picture had come from. Does Dr. Servatius agree to this ruling for the moment?
Ja, ich möchte nur noch auf eins hinweisen. Der Angeklagte macht mich darauf aufmerksam, dass er bei seiner Vernehmung hinzugefügt habe, er pflege nicht solche Bilder zu unterschreiben wie ein Filmstar. Er könne sich das nicht erklären, wo das Bild herkommt.
Yes, I only want to point out that the accused calls my attention to the fact that while he was being interrogated, he added that he is not in the custom of signing his pictures like a cinema actor, and he cannot explain the thing to himself, the origin of the picture.
Where is it?
Judge Halevi, where is it in the tape recording, this remark by the accused? The presiding judge, was your attention called now or when the statement was handed? The President of Court, this moment. This was done in addition to the part read by the prosecution.
This is true. It is to be found in page 1783. I'm sorry. As the Counsel of Defense says, it is written in page 1783.
Das wollte ich noch dazugeben, weil es mir gestern noch eingefallen
the interpreter will translate from the Hebrew.
Eine Sache. Ich kann mich nicht entsinnen, dass ich eben auf oder nach Manier dieser Filmstars hier meine Unterschrift unter meinem Bild gesetzt habe, sondern könnte mir eher vorstellen, dass ich das auf der Rückseite gegeben habe. Denn es ist ein Bild gewesen, das ich glaublich für Personalgeschichten der Capri und so weiter brauchte.
Dass ich?
Für Personalgeschichten der Capri. Capri heißt die Firma. Asher Ba Avad bei Argentina. Firma Germany.
3 was the name of a German firm. He believes that the signature was made on the back of the picture.
I should like to point out what I recalled yesterday. This and more. I do not remember that I understand this photograph, but perhaps on the back of the photograph I might have added my name, because it might have been a photograph for the use of the advertising department of the Capri firm.
Is this all the content of the personal file?
This is the first part of the file, and in order not to confuse issues, I should like to ask the court to receive from me a special pack of exhibits, because now I'm going out.
We asked these 25 kids to play Follow the Leader to see how dirty they could get.
Made by Dieter Wislizeny and given before Smith W. Brookhart, officer of the United States Office of Chief Counsel of the International Military Tribunal, trial of major Nazi war criminals. And now I also have an affidavit by Mr. Brookhart, confirmed by the embassy in Washington, that he is the man who took this statement, this affidavit, under oath from Wislizeny. The name is Smith W. Brookhart, B-R-O-O-K-H-A-R-T.
Smith W. Brookhart.
The court, this was an interrogator appointed by the court by the prosecution in Nuremberg, says our prosecution.
If
there is any objection, I shall carry on after Dr. Servatius. The court are these affidavits by Wislizeny and by Hess. I shall submit the affidavit made by Wislizeny. Wyslizeny's testimony before the court. What do you wish to submit? The prosecution, of course, but there is always a different reasoning regarding each document. I now speak of the affidavits made by Wislizeny and Brookhart. Paragraph 15 of the law of punishment of Nazis and their collaborators. Dr. Servatius, please.
Eine Abweichung von dem üblichen Prozessverfahren bezüglich der Dokumente von Wislizeny stattgeben soll. Es wird hier vorgelegt, in einem Dokument, ist mir zugegangen, in einem Dokument 584, eine eidesstattliche Erklärung des Untersuchungsoffiziers Smith W. Brookhart. Es ist eine Erklärung vom 19. September 1960, die bezieht sich auf die frühere Aussage von Wislizeny, die er am 29. November 1945 gemacht hat in Nürnberg. Er sagt hier, dass das Dokument, ich will es nicht vorlesen, sondern ich will nur den Inhalt zunächst angeben. Er sagt, das Dokument, was nun hier in Englisch als Affidavit von Wislizeny zur Vorlage kommt, sei nach zahlreichen Vernehmungssitzungen zustande gekommen, after numerous sessions of interrogation. Und sagt weiter, Wislizeny war ein völlig mitarbeitender Zeuge, er war mit Eichmann etwas verfeindet, aber das spielt keine Rolle. Ich möchte nun die Aufmerksamkeit darauf lenken, dass dieses Affidavit einige Tage später gemacht worden ist, als die Aussage des gleichen Wislicini vor dem Internationalen Militärtribunal. Diese Aussage hatte er gemacht vor dem Internationalen Militärtribunal am 14.11.45. Das ist hier von der Anklage bezeichnet als Dokument 856.
אולי אדוני יעמוד כאן בשביל התרגום.
Would you please stop at this point for the sake of the translation, please? Says the judge. I have a reservation, Your Honors, says Dr. Servatius, and in regard to the deviation from procedures, I object to the acceptance of the affidavits in regard to Wislicini. In the files before me, there is a document 584, which is an affidavit by Smith W. Brookhart of the 19th of September 1960, which refers to evidence which he took on the 19th of November 1945 from Wislicini. I do not propose to read the whole affidavit, but refer to its content. It is stated there that Wislicini gave the content of this affidavit after many interrogation sessions, and that he was a cooperative witness, and that there was hostility between him and Eichmann, but this did not have any influence on the matter. The affidavit which it is proposed to submit here, signed by Brookhart, was written. The date of the evidence at Nuremberg was the 14th of September 1945.